y'all, and welcome back to another video. My name is Christina and I love the baby whisperer Tracy Hogg. I talk about her book, The Baby Whisperer Solves All Your Problems, in most of my videos. And I have followed her book since my first daughter was 11 weeks old. Right now, I recently had my second daughter. She's currently 7 weeks. So I'm putting together this video of how I'm doing the Baby Whisperer's book with my youngest daughter from her birth, essentially, since I didn't get to do that with my first daughter. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at some examples of the 4S sleep routine. And this is the routine that you can follow to put your baby to sleep if they're under 4 months of age. So essentially, you don't have to wait for them to be 4 months to sleep train them. There is a way that you can teach them sleep before that is healthy and not stressful and does not yet involve self-soothing. So that is the 4S method. I've talked about that in my other videos, and if you have her book, I'm sure you've read about it as well. So I have in this video 3 examples of me doing this routine with my daughter. In one example, you'll see it go pretty seamlessly. The 4th S is optional, and so ideally you can put your baby down just doing the 3 S's. Then the second example, you'll see me have to do some shush padding. And in the last example, you'll see the shush padding again, but in a situation where she is kind of a little more riled up and needs more calming, if that makes sense. All of the examples I'm going to show you are the 4S method done correctly, and it works, I swear. However, if you have never done this method before with your child, it will probably take more time for them to calm down while you're doing it and for them to actually fall asleep. We've been doing this with our daughter literally since birth, so she is very used to it. She knows that it means sleep. She knows all of the signs and the triggers and everything that means sleep is coming, and she knows that she sleeps in her bassinet as well. So if you are starting to do this with your child and they've never slept in their own bed or in a bassinet, or you've never had a sleep routine around them taking naps or around bedtime, then you're definitely going to see that it's going to take them more time to adjust. So just because I might be able to do things quickly in this video and you see me have success more quick than you do, it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. As long as you do the 4 S's correctly, you stay consistent and you stay committed to doing it until the very end, until your baby is asleep. It could take them a few days to learn to anticipate sleep at the end of this routine, but eventually they will catch on and they will learn, and they will learn sleep. I did start the 4S routine with my oldest daughter when she was 11 weeks old, but within 2 or 3 weeks or so, she was ready to be sleep trained, so we did pick up, put down with her. And I do have a video of me doing pick up, put down with her that I'll link somewhere up here where you can check out that video. If your baby is around 4 months, then you can actually just jump into sleep training. I do recommend starting the 4S routine first with them, maybe for a few days, so that they can have some sort of routine around their nap or bedtime. And I'll just jump into what the 4 S's look like in a second. But if your baby is old enough, then you can really just jump straight into pick up, put down, or any other sleep training method. So just a brief overview of what the 4S routine looks like before you see these videos. The first S is to set the scene. So once you see your baby have some sort of sleep cue, that's when you want to prepare their environment for sleep, and you want to remove them from stimulation and get them into the room in which they're going to sleep. So that sleep cue could be anything. I think the most popular sleep cue is a yawn. You could also just notice that your baby gets more fussy. You could notice that they're pulling at their hair or their ears, like because they don't really have any control of their limbs. You might notice that they're, they have less control. They could start to flail their limbs a little bit. They could just appear more cranky, or you could even just see in their eyes that they're slowly glazing over and getting drowsy. So any of those signs, and that is a sleep cue, that means that you need to immediately start the bedtime routine. I have made this mistake a lot where my daughter has yawned and then I'm like, oh, I'll get to that in a second. And even just waiting like 2 or 3 minutes, it makes it harder to put her down once we're in the room. And so it's important that the second you see that sleep cue that you go ahead and you go put her down. The way you know it's a sleep cue is if it's happening towards the end of their wake window. So around this age, I think 8 weeks and under, their wake window should be around an hour each. And you might see earlier in the day that they have shorter wake windows, so it could be even closer to 45 minutes. And later in the day, it could be longer wake windows, like an hour 15, an hour 30 minutes at the most. After 8 weeks, then you'll see more hour-and-a-half wake windows. And as you get closer to 3 months, you might even see some 2-hour wake windows, but probably not until they're 4 months will you see that. So that's why it's important to note when your baby wakes up from their previous nap. That's why I suggest that you log everything. I suggest using an app. I use the Nara baby app on my phone to do that. And I can even see how long it's been in that app since she woke up. And so if I see, oh, it's been 55 minutes and she's starting to get fussy, then I can assume that she's ready for her next nap. If she yawns, but I look and it's only been 25 minutes since she's woken up, then I would not take that as a sleep cue. And it's interesting because my daughter actually does yawn a lot right after I'm done feeding her. And so that's only about 20 to 30 minutes into her wake window, so I know that's on a sleep cue, and it rarely ever means that she needs to go to sleep at that point. But if she does yawn closer to an hour after she's woken up, then I would take that as a sleep cue. So the second that happens, you set the scene. So you go into the room that your baby's gonna sleep in, whether that's your room or their own room. You make it dark, you make it quiet. We turn on our white noise machine just to block out any sounds our toddler might be making or any sounds from outside. And then you do the second S and you swaddle. So Tracy Hogg just recommends always swaddling every baby. There are very few babies that actually dislike swaddling, and a lot of parents even might take their baby breaking out of the swaddle as a sign that they don't like it, but that's just something newborns do. They don't have any control over their limbs, and they really do need the swaddling, especially if they are very tired or even if they're overtired. They're going to flail more, like what I said earlier, so they really need the swaddling because if they flail too much, then that'll wake them up more and then they'll get more tired and then it's a whole cycle. So I tried to go pretty slow with those first 2 S's just so that my daughter has time to adjust to being in this dark room and to kind of like move into that sleep period. The third S is hopefully the longest S of your routine, and that is to sit or to stand. And basically just what you do is you hold them ideally vertically on your shoulder and you sit totally still for 5 minutes. And if your baby is starting to fall asleep before 5 minutes, you don't have to wait the full 5 minutes, but I wouldn't do any longer than 5 minutes if they're not crying. So you just hold them and you just wait for them to kind of get drowsy and to start to drift off. You might need to look at their face to know, but you can really also tell by their breathing, especially if it slows down, if it starts to seem like they're drifting asleep, then you know that it might be time to lay them down. So while you're sitting there, just don't do anything really. You can also stand, but it's harder to stand and to not rock unintentionally. You really want to be totally still, so however you can be totally still. And you do want to do a full 5 minutes if you can. Don't try to rush this part, really try to take it slow, because if you do the full 5 minutes and then you lay your baby down, ideally you can just walk away. So essentially, let's say you lay them down and they're fussing, or you have them on your shoulder and they are crying to the point where they need to be calmed. They could still fuss a little while you're holding them or while you lay them down. So fussing isn't necessarily a sign that they need the 4th S, which is the Shush Pat. But you know your baby, so if you see that they're kind of ramping up, if they've started to fuss but it's turning into more of a cry and they're having a difficult time settling, then that's when you pull out the 4th S. That's the Shush Pat. And so essentially if you laid them down, you kind of roll them onto their side and pat them on the back and shush close to their ear just to calm them. And doing these 2 things in tandem can help distract them from their tiredness and from their crying, and it kind of helps to calm them. So this is how we soothe our baby while we put them to sleep if they do need soothing. Before 4 months of age, your baby cannot self-soothe, which is why sleep training is not a thing before this time. So that's why you do need to do some work here, and you do need to help soothe your baby. If they are crying while you're holding them, then you just pat them on the back and Shush close to their ear as well. And if you are holding them, I wait until my daughter has stopped crying and she's calm. I keep patting. Sometimes I'll drop the Shush pretty early on. She doesn't react too much to it once she's calmed down, so I'll just keep patting her, and then I'll lay her down and continue to pat her while she's in her crib. If I stop and then lay her down, she will 100% of the time wake up and start crying again. But then essentially you just want to keep patting until you know that your baby is asleep. You don't want to stop that part too soon. So that's why I say hold them and sit still as long as possible, because even if you think they're falling asleep on your shoulder, if you lay them down too early and they need the Shush Pat, it's going to take more of your time to put them down. But if you can wait that full 5 minutes holding them and then laying them down and you can walk away, then that's ideal for you and for them. But essentially you do want to stay there. You want to commit to the patting. You don't want to just stop it and then run out of the room. You even might want to linger for a few minutes as well to make sure that they don't startle themselves and wake up. I personally always wait when they're sleeping and I've stopped patting. I wait for her to settle in some way, because usually I'll slow down the patting over the course of a couple of minutes, and then I'll even leave my hand there while it's totally still. And then I wait until she settles a bit, because she'll usually, try to get a little more comfortable, and that's when I'll take my hand off and just watch her and make sure she can settle and then keep falling asleep. But she could settle and wake herself up more, and that's when, I need to keep patting again. So that's just a brief overview of what you are going to see in these videos I've taken for you. I've tried not to cut anything down, tried to give you the raw footage of everything that we do. And yeah, if you have any questions about the 4S routine, please feel free to leave those below. If you've had any success stories of trying it yourself, I'd love to hear as well. And just make sure to like this video and subscribe if you want to hear about more content and more things that are going to be coming out soon. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy. So we start off here doing the first S, which is set the scene, then swaddling, and then moving to sitting still. While holding her vertically. While I'm sitting here, I notice that she's kind of alert and looking around a bit, so I try to use my shoulder just to block out any visual stimulation, which means I'm kind of holding her a little further down than I would usually hold her. After I set her down, I obviously just want to hang around and make sure she actually is falling asleep. I like to wait until I see her kind of settle a little bit. So that might be her moving her body a little bit, trying to get comfortable. She might make a few noises and grunt. But after she does that, kind of wiggle in her bassinet and then calms back down, that's how I know she's all good. And there is a possibility, of course, of when she's trying to settle that she might start crying or something, and that's when you would need to intervene with a Shush Pat, and that's what you will see in the next example. So here we just start off with setting the scene, and of course we swaddle here as well. And I pull up a chair next to my daughter's bassinet so that I can sit with her and be comfortable. Now, while I was sitting here, I believe I only sat for about 3 minutes, and I do wish I did the full 5 minutes. She started off fussy and wiggling, but she was able to settle on my shoulder. I did feel that her breathing had slowed down and became more calm. But if I had held her for a minute or two longer, I think I would have gotten her in a better drowsy state to then lay her down. My concern is always that I hold her for too long, that the moment I lay her down, that she'll wake up even more. And so you have to find the balance between holding your baby in a helpful way and holding your baby to the point where it might become a prop or something like that. Honestly, I have not found at all in the first 7 weeks of my daughter's life that holding her at this point has become a prop. It's just something in the back of my head that I am watching out for and that I'm concerned about. But it definitely probably sabotaged me here a bit. So I do wish that I held her longer. You can see that she does get fussy in her bassinet. She can't calm down on her own. So I end up having to shush pat her in order to help her calm down to sleep. I also want to add here that I like to stand for a few seconds before I lay her down. I find that that makes the transition a little bit easier. Instead of trying to lay her down while I'm still sitting, I kind of jostle her a little more. So I try to make that transition to laying her down pretty smooth, just so that she doesn't wake up or is startled by that movement. At this point, I saw that her hand was kind of creeping up out of the swaddle. This happens with her a lot, but it's important to keep them swaddled as much as you possibly can while they're trying to sleep, because their hands can wake them up. So I did have to re-swaddle her here a couple of times just to make sure that she wouldn't jolt herself awake or sabotage the whole process. And of course, obviously, you don't really want to re-swaddle them in the middle of it because that can wake them up more, but luckily she didn't wake up too much. She did, of course, end up falling asleep with her hand kind of out of the swaddle anyway, but I decided just to leave it there since she was basically all calmed down, almost asleep, and it didn't end up bothering her in the end, which was good. But if you can, just make sure that you re-swaddle your baby if you get the opportunity to do it and you don't think you'll wake them up too much. So here I tried to just give her a second to see if she would calm down on her own, but it was kind of clear that she was ramping up, so I just had to start shush patting her basically from the start of her nap time. I have the habit of moving in and out of shushing, so I don't always shush the whole time. I try to drop that pretty quickly just because it's tiring on my mouth and my mouth dries out pretty fast as well. With my first daughter, I would have to shush a lot and constantly, and it would be a whole thing whenever I had to stop shushing. I'd have to slow down over the course of a few minutes with that. But with my second daughter, I've noticed that she doesn't really respond to the shushing that much. I think it does help when she is really riled up, but it's not necessarily something that needs to be slowed down for her. And here I just like to stand when I do lay her down in her bassinet, just to make that transition to the bassinet easier and less rocky. And then I just have to sit back down and keep patting her. At this point, I'm trying to get good footage on my phone. It's really dark. It's like in the evening at this time, so sorry. It's not great footage up close, but I did my best. Hopefully you can see here that she is just kind of settling a little bit. I do continue to pat her on the back, and when I feel like she is settled for the most part and doesn't need any extra soothing, that's when I start slowing down the pats, and then eventually I do take my hand off of her back as well. And then I do just sit here for a minute at the end and just make sure she's totally asleep before I decide to get up and leave. I want to add here that I do have a lot of rough times putting her down with this technique. I stick with it, obviously, and I do my best to be consistent, but there are some times where it can take up to 20 minutes to get her to be calm and in her bassinet. Sometimes I lay her down and she gets worked up again, so I have to pick her up and continue to shush pat her while I'm holding her, and then try to lay her down again later. These are just examples of recent naps that I felt like were good visuals for y'all if you have any questions or if you're interested in doing the 4S method yourself. But just because your nap is more rough or looks different than the examples that I've included in this video doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. You really just need to do your best and stay consistent and push through. There are some naps that I find sometimes the problem is that she actually is so hungry that maybe she didn't get a full feed earlier, or she just needs something extra, especially when she's going through a growth spurt. And so if you really do feel like your baby is fighting the nap, there might be another issue. It could be a wet diaper or some sort of physical discomfort, even a distraction. Like I notice if I leave the door open behind me while I'm holding her, she gets distracted by that, and that makes it harder for her to fall asleep. So if you are using this technique to put your baby down and you do feel like there's something else that is interfering with her nap and she's not able to go down on her own, and it seems like the shush padding isn't working, then there could be another factor. It's not a magic thing that all of a sudden makes your baby fall asleep. It's just trying to help them soothe and trying to give them the sense of doing it independently. Anyways, now we're getting to the end of this video, so I just want to thank you for watching, and please let me know if you do have any questions about any of the examples that you saw below.